Awesome. I know there's some of you in the back. If you want to squeeze in, that'd be great. We had so many people turn out for this event that we didn't have enough seats. So thank you all for showing up en masse. We're so excited for you to be here. Awesome. So today you all are going to see two different panels. I'm excited to be your host for the very first one. My name is Mackenzie Elliott. And for our first panel that's focused on the future of fashion, we have four awesome ladies in the industry here today. We have Zichi from Resource Fashion. Yes. Ophelia from Bobble House. Trisha from Lensing. And Inez from Unreal Fields. So to begin with, would you all tell me who you are, what your business is, and how you got into fashion? And I'll start with you, Inez.
Yeah, okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. I am a fashion founder of a direct-to-consumer shoe brand. And I started that business 5 years ago. I'm actually going to tell you a little bit of the story, how it all started. I wanted to show that Portuguese production was not only good in terms of craftsmanship, but we could also deliver really edgy, contemporary design. And we were a global brand since day one. So one of our main markets is US, Australia, and Western Europe. And as the time evolved, as you all know, with COVID, I was able to always deliver quality, not always able to have the manufacturers respect the lead time and even being cost effective. So I decided recently to close down my brand. So I'm going to use this hat that I just realized that was here today. It says, "Shit happens." As like any failure story, there's so many learning experiences. It's not to take much time of this intro. I recently partnered with Resource because as a former fashion founder myself, I really understand the problem that they're solving because it's so hard, and many of you might be like recent fashion founders. Sometimes it's okay to, we can do really good design, but then when it comes to the part of being cost effective and finding the right manufacturers, that's when shit happens. So if you want to have some advices, come talk to me in the end, and I'm so happy to share my knowledge with you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Well, I hope that shit doesn't happen when you work with us. So my name is Trisha Carey, and I'm with Lensing Fibers. We manufacture fiber from trees, which I can share this with you afterwards. So what we make is this product, and we brand it as Tencel. The generic is Lyocell or Modal. And we also make EcoVero Viscose. And you can find lots of Tencel here in the Allbirds store today. Any of the Tree Runner products are all using our fiber. So what we do is not only manufacture the fiber, but we work with retailers and brands. We work with the supply chain partners to make sure that it gets to market, and we also tell the story to the consumer. So Tencel is produced, we have 9 different factories around the world. We do make Tencel Lyocell here in the United States. Actually, we've been producing Tencel for 30 years here in the US, so proud that we can also make it here. And you find it in a lot of other applications too. Denim, home products, even the socks here in Allbirds are using Tencel. So thinking about where raw materials come from and that we can use nature as a supplier for our wonderful products from shoes, socks to apparel. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ophelia. I'm the co-founder of Bobble House. We are a sustainable and genderless brand that is dedicated to the new generation of Generation Z. I can attest to Tencel because actually I am wearing Tencel. So one thing how I got into fashion is that I came from a traditional fashion business background, and when I got into the industry, came from traditional retail, I got super jaded. I don't know if a lot of people can recognize that feeling. Everything women wear just got smaller, tighter, shorter, and for me that genderalizing a piece of clothing just simply doesn't make sense for us. You know, if it fit you, if you identify with it, then it's yours. So for me is one, how do we kind of revolutionize the industry for the first time? That how does the supply meet the demand, right? The demand of genderless, the demand of seasonless, and the demand of being much more sustainable, such as utilizing tencel and recycled cotton and dead stock in every way that we can. So Bobble House, we call ourselves a challenger brand because we challenge the traditional industry from production by only sourcing dead stock and recycled cotton, as well as tencel in our production, as well as handmade everything made in Shanghai to the same quality of what you see in semi-luxury brands, and everything is D2C. So that is Bobble House.
Yeah, Bubble House also just opened their store in Lower East Side, so you guys all should check out. We were there last Friday. Hi everyone, I'm Zichi. I'm founder of Resource Fashion. This is our company, and we are a SaaS platform connecting emerging brands as well as retailers, creators with global manufacturers and make their work life easier. And the first question I think is, what do I think of fashion? And everybody forget about the question, but I think it's important because I keep thinking about, I tend to think about question from a philosophical point, and I was wondering today, like, what does fashion mean to us on an everyday life? Why do we all come here on the New York Fashion Week? And I think fashion itself has a very, it brings a lot of meaning and a lot of light and color to somewhat like a very boring, dull, and can be a meaningless day. So thanks everyone for deciding to show up fashionable today. My relationship to fashion also comes from the time I was born, pretty much. My mom is a very much a traditional fashion manufacturer agency entrepreneur, so I grew up seeing that my mom runs her manufacturing company and really never having to buy anything because everything I wear was from her company. And as I grew up, I came to the US when I was 17, went to college, after graduation had a consulting job, really hating it. I don't know how many of you are in corporate, but it was a very dreadful period of my life. I met my co-founder, who also went to the same college at the time, and we started a passion project. We created a fashion brand called ZNT Style with our initial. That was a very exciting period of time where we did all of the photo shooting in my one bedroom, buying the backdrop, and doing a lot of live stream at home. And while we were doing that, we realized that fashion sourcing is a pain in the ass. And if we are Chinese, we already pretty much own like the language of the supply chain. We still run into so many problems. There must be so many other brands, so many other designers facing even more challenges. So that's when we decided to create our consulting and investment banking job to really dive deep into building a solution for the new generations of fashion brands. And I think we're dedicating probably the next decade of life to solve this very, very big problem.
Thank you all so much for those wonderful intros. So many of us are here today because we're really excited about where fashion is headed. There are so many new innovations that have come over the past couple of years. We're seeing fashion in Web3. We're seeing more sustainable fabrics. So what innovation in the fashion industry is getting you excited about where fashion is headed? And maybe we can start in the middle with Ophelia.
What I've really seen in the changes, and I've been with Tencel for 24 years, so I've seen a lot of evolutions within the textile and apparel industry, and I'm really excited to see all the work that's being done around circularity. And I think this is kind of the evolution that we're going to need to take as an industry and also as consumers. You know, we're used to recycling our plastic and glass, but now we're going to have to think about how are we recycling our textiles. And there's 50 million tons of textile and apparel waste discarded globally per year. And there's 17 million tons in the United States alone. So we are consuming a lot. I think our culture has told us for years, we need a new outfit, we need something, we need to buy more. And that social shift that's going to have to happen around circularity, I think, is what's really exciting to me. And with that comes so much collaboration, which we hadn't seen before. So, collaboration becomes the new competition now, and you have brands sitting down together saying, okay, how are we going to deal with all these challenges, and where do we need to work together? So that's what really excites me.
I really do want to second that. And a lot of small brands, as well as larger, such as Eileen Fisher and Days, or I think One Days, actually came to UN and sit at a round table and just brainstorm with BV, saying, okay, what is actually the most environmental damaging process, whether it's the fabric, whether it's the dyeing, and etc. And I think the possibility is just in simply education and awareness. It's something that we kind of forget. Back in 2018 or back in 2019, when I first started sourcing for Bobble House, every door that I knocked with manufacturer around China, they just asked me, why do you want to use recycled cotton? It's much more expensive, it's harsher, it's less wearable. Why do you want this fabric? And I said it was the responsible thing. I went back to the same factory 5 months later, and they have a whole rack of recycled fabrics now. And I think it is something that I'm so excited forward to, because this is now a non-negotiable. This is not something, it's a cherry on top, right? But it's actually a principle. Your identity, your personality, as well as our responsibility for our generation to protect this earth right now. So I'm really excited for that to continue evolving with more style, with more creativity, and more collaboration in this world. Yeah.
Yeah, I think obviously, I think sustainability is really on the rise. From Resource Fashion, we have spoken to over 700-800 brands and working with quite a lot, and everybody's asking for sustainable fabric. Everybody's asking to look into our manufacturer to make sure they are working with really ethical manufacturers. So really glad to see that being the reality. And from a more technology perspective, I'm personally very excited about more 3D design use case for the design world. I know Bazaar Lab is really innovating on that space. And with our perspective, we're also piloting with a few 3D designers to bring the design process into a more sustainable way. Because by leveraging 3D design, brands will be able to directly get their pattern printed out after seeing the rendered image from the software, rather than having to repeatedly create physical sample again and again. And that process saves us so much time, saves us so much shipping waste, as well as the actual fabric used in sample making. And it's very similar to when Adobe AI and Photoshop is in place. The adoption was not high enough because you need really talented worker to do that. But when Canva comes into place, people can actually get into the design world, and everybody can communicate in design. And we see a lot of new startups making the design process even easier. So Chloe and Browseware are what industry people like to use, but we are very excited about probably partnering with some more innovators in the space to provide easier to use web-based 3D design.
I just want to give a big shout out to all the underdogs. So I think a lot of the role of the emerging brands and the fashion designers is to challenge the manufacturers, because it usually, like you're just saying, it all starts with that. But if for any reason you can feel that you're getting stuck and you're not being able, like you mentioned as well, which I think it's fundamental, like collaborating, because sometimes you might not be able to force that on your own, but maybe if you put together 4 or 5 brands or fashion designers, the bargaining power, and maybe they will hear you. But if not, then there's a lot of big fashion brands already, maybe on the corporate world, if you want to give yourself some rest from the startup life. They need the underdogs. They need the entrepreneurs. They need the people that think differently, that are going to push the innovation forward. In fact, a lot of the big corporations nowadays are getting and establishing departments on innovation. And the people they're hiring is not the typical corporate job. It's the people who want to do things differently, not just for the sake of doing it, because they know it's what is going to drive the long-term impact. So either on your own brand or working for someone else, innovation, it's possible.
Thank you so much, Inez. I love that message for this group in particular, because just walking around and meeting people earlier, there are so many in this room who might consider themselves the underdogs right now, who are just getting started in the industry, and who are going to become the future of fashion for us. So I think that's a great point. But kind of flipping the script a little bit, thinking about the opposite side of the coin, what areas of the industry do you think are untouched or still have a lot of potential to be maybe harvested?
What? I'm not ready. Wait.
It's my question. We're dealing with that every day. Obviously, my answer is going to be very biased because we're in the ins and outs of the fashion supply chain world every day. And we work with, as I said, we've spoken to so many brands. Everybody come to us with a different story, but the common line is it is so freaking difficult to work with manufacturers. I know that some of you are in the fashion world, maybe having a brand, but some of you might not have had experiences. So maybe I can quickly talk through a story of how someone might start their brand and working with manufacturer to help you guys experience what the actual experience might be like. So let's imagine someone called Julia wants to start a brand without any network to manufacturers. Julia might be like doing some Googling and realizing that to make the brand profitable, she has to go overseas. Because if she's producing locally, it's very hard to make the margin work. And then she goes to Alibaba, did a bunch of research, and found one with the highest review. Julia is from New York, so she doesn't speak Chinese, obviously. And they started a broken English conversation about the minimum order quantity. Julia only realized that, okay, the minimum order quantity is 300 pieces per color per style, which is very big for someone who is just to start with no funding, no capital, no idea if a style is going to sell. Nonetheless, Julia is determined, so she went ahead. And after 6 months of back and forth working, shipping out sample back and forth, using a lot of emails, text messages, legacy way of working, Julia received her 600 pieces of jackets, and she realized that the color does not look right. The color looks more green than she thought. And then Julia and the manufacturer started a endless philosophical debate of what is green and what is blue. So this is a very typical story of some of our brands' experiences and how they decided to actually have a local partner in the manufacturer's location to help them with that. And through working with these brands, we learned that the main big problems in the supply chain side of the fashion world is minimum order quantity. It is the quality, which can be very inconsistent. You never know if the manufacturer is switching the fabric or reducing a process that is needed to produce something if you don't have a proper QC in place. It is a lead time, which can be too long, because I know like slow fashion is being a movement, but consumers still care a lot about the trend. And 6 month time, you can easily miss out on a trend that was happening. And finally, the industry itself runs forever, so the legacy way of working has not been really innovated. It's a lot of text message, a lot of emails, a lot of back and forth, phone call and spreadsheet management. So that's an area that we believe is untouched and is yet to be disrupted. And I think ideal way of working for the future in our imagination is similar to when you order your favorite pizza from Brooklyn. You click a few clicks on Uber Eats, you get it in 20, 30 minutes. We want to make the same magical experience for our brands.
I think for me, going back to my previous story, that an area that hasn't really been tapped is fabric platform / marketplace. I don't know if you guys know, LVMH just launched a dead stock fabric platform. I think it was 2 years ago, Queen of Raw, which is one of the biggest dead stock fabric marketplace in the United States right now. And they recently expanded into India as well as Europe. Swatch On is another platform, but that's pretty much about it. There isn't that many resources for brands, for designers, for manufacturers to find these dead stock fabric, because you really have to knock on each factory's door. Hey, do you have leftover fabric? If you so, like, how many do you have? What color do you have? When did you make it? Da, 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 right? All these data, you really have to ask them one by one by one. There's no systematic marketplace for them to unify their data, to unify their fabrics. Something like Queen of Raw, but for one of the biggest fabric manufacturers in the world, which is China, or India, or et cetera. So I definitely think that's a huge missed opportunity.
I think picking up on some of the things that were previously said, for me, where I'd like to see the industry invest more is in domestic manufacturing. We were producing our clothes here, and then over the past 25, 30 years, have switched over to producing primarily in Asia. And I think if you're an emerging business, there's nothing more valuable than going to visit a factory and having that opportunity to talk face to face, and then you'd get the right color. So made in USA there needs to be more development here, and it's also to invest more in the technology, because one of our challenges here in the US, of course, is the labor cost. And you can offset that with integration of new technology and seamless knitting, which Allbirds does a lot of here. But that's where I'd like to see that as an industry, we can bring more back here to the US.
Just a comment again, and picking up on all these points, is that we just had this conversation yesterday actually with the brand, and they were talking how hard it is sometimes to source fabric because they have to buy the whole roll. But I mean, any fashion brand cannot be totally forgetting about what is the current trend. So a lot of these materials can actually be used by different brands, and but through collaboration and sharing, it's so much easier. So I think platforms like Resource and so many others, they can help actually fashion brands come together and share resources, towards a more zero waste policy and circularity and all these things we're speaking about.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. So for those in the crowd, it sounds like you all just got a couple of startup ideas. And on that note, I know there's so many people here today that are trying to figure out, how do I even get into the fashion industry? I love this space. I want to do something here. And so if you all had to give yourself the you advice, the you that was not in the fashion industry yet, what would you say?
I would say my best advice is to be out in the stores, to do these types of events, listen. You're not going to learn from sitting behind the computer or just being on your phone or looking at TikTok. I'm saying that, no, because my daughter's here. No, you have to be out and watch people and see what's really happening in the stores. That's how you learn what the consumer's after.
If you have a voice and if you have something to say, stick to it. I think that would be my biggest advice to my old self. Yeah.
I think doing entrepreneurship really helped me a lot. For example, hosting this event is literally my first time doing it, and just do it, putting things out there, inviting people, partner with great people, and trust the turnout. It's great today. So try out new things and be fearless, be out there.
I've recently adopted this motto because of shit things happening, which is keep showing up. I believe if whatever, if it's personal or professional, if you go through this what might be a downturn, but actually a huge opportunity, right? It's if you keep showing up, and regardless, it could be networking events, talking to your friends, things will happen. And also a lesson I've learned the hard way. It's much better to do something you like with someone you love than something you love with someone you like. So make sure you go forward together with people you love, because whatever you like might end up being something you love. I'm sorry if this is sounding confusing, but it's more important the people you work with sometimes than what you happen doing. So surround yourselves with your crowd.
Awesome. Thank you all. So I think our next question we've actually touched on a little bit, which is how is your brand changing the future of fashion? And I know some of you have already kind of answered that. And if you have already answered that one, in our time together, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about like what is the next step for you as you're pursuing the future of fashion? Or maybe what is the next step for your brand in that pursuit? We can start.
Yeah, well, in my case now, I mean, I always wanted, as I was building my fashion brand, to tap tech. And that was also because as I was trying to fundraise, I was facing all these problems of like all the investors saying you're very cost intensive. The way you're actually running your supply will not allow us, like it means all my money will go into your inventory, and I actually do not want that. So I tried by all means to go into models of like on-demand, made-to-order, pre-order. And so if I can also give an advice, and it's connected to a fundamental need as a business and also as a society from the sustainability angle, is start your first collection, and for that onwards, always on that model, because it's impossible for you to do the guest gaming in an accurate way. You never know what the customers want. And actually, sometimes, we end up doing the yellow model, thinking that was the one that was going to sell, and then the green was the one that sold the most. So like you actually need to be really agile. So if you can find suppliers that can help you do things that way, it's the best for also on the innovation, sustainability, and how I would have done things differently.
I would say for our brand, for Tencel, what we stand for and what we contribute to society is that we address circularity. The fiber is also biodegradable and compostable, as well as we do have some recycled components. We have zero carbon footprint, so we offer that as an option. And the third area is around traceability and transparency, which I think is another horizon within the industry. And going forward in the future, I see that we will continue to work with great brand partners from Bauble House to Allbirds. And we will do this with using the foundation around the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So looking at not only what's happening for the planet, but also for people. So that's where we're addressing for the future.
One of the biggest thing Bauble House is working on is community. For us, fashion doesn't come from the top down anymore. It doesn't come from the runway, from magazines telling me what to wear, telling me how to style this, what to buy, etc. It actually comes from people around me, right? What I see on the street, what my friends are wearing, and etc. So for us, community and how we give back and encourage more collaboration and creativity in our community is very important. So with our flagship, and thank you for mentioning, our new flagship is opening right under Mr. Purple. It's 180 Orchard Street. And for us, we are actually hosting monthly, if not bi-weekly events that encourage communities to come together, whether it's Web3, whether it's sustainability, whether it's artistry or just a movie night, like that's how fashion stems from community, I think, just from style influencing and etc. So that's what we're focusing on.
Yeah, I really love that, and very much aligned with the community side and the inclusive fashion side. We believe that the future of fashion will be much more decentralized, will be owned by a lot more independent brands, a lot more independent creators. It will be more sustainable. Everyone cares much more about where the fabric is sourced, whether it's recyclable, who the manufacturers they are working with, and it will be more data-driven. And everything we're doing is really to enable that future, and we want to build a more inclusive future of fashion where it's extremely easy to start a brand, no matter you work with domestic manufacturers, you work with global manufacturers from any place of the world, but we want this process to be easy, headache-less, and sustainable. Align with what we're doing for the future. So we just started our seed round fundraising. If any of you know investor or if you are that are interested, let me know. And we're always looking for talented people to join our team. That's another thing. feel free to come to talk to us afterwards. And finally, if you're a fashion brand, you know what to talk to.
Okay, and so for our last couple minutes of the panel here, I'm excited to turn the questions over to you on the floor. And so does anybody here have a question that they want to ask our panel? Raise your hands and I'll call you all in the order I see the hands. Any questions for our panel today? Oh, I see a hand here. Yes, go ahead. Yeah. Would you repeat the question when the mic comes to you? Great. Thank you.
Also, thank you for calling me pink. That's the use of fashion. So I think the question is, she's wondering if we're doing anything related to 3D fashion in our current production process. Is that your question? Yeah, we're actually right now piloting with a few 3D designers who is able to assist our brands in creating the design and directly refining the design. Essentially, the process of the designer working with the brand will replace the process of the brand directly submitting the tech pack, getting the sample made, shipping to her, back and forth a few rounds. So when the designer works with the brand, the rendered image is being produced and they can iteratively work together until the rendered image looks good. So the power of the clothes or browseware, this design software is it can really mimic the look of the fabric on the avatar, and they will be able to also set the measurement of the avatar to be able to have a much more accurate pattern. So once the rendered image is being confirmed and the pattern is being confirmed, we directly pass it on to sample maker, and theoretically that can reduce the sample round from 3 to 4 rounds to 1 to 2 rounds, and like saving 1 to 2 months of your work time.
The crowd is getting restless over there.
Okay, you're right here. Yeah, so how is hiring different in this new decentralized world of fashion? Who wants to?
I think what's really changed, and also being hybrid too, as most companies are, is it's really about the personality. So I look first at how someone would fit in with the team, and then skills are kind of secondary. Because if you can't all work together and within the collaboration, then it's never going to work. And also looking at enthusiasm, and also I look a lot at, are people staying at jobs longer than a year or 2 years? So that's something that I look at. So personality and really kind of staying focused on something, not that you're moving around various industries.
For us, show us your work. We don't care about experience. We don't really care about anything else. But if you're a right fit, if we like your design, if you believe in challenging the entire industry, then you're one of us.
For us, we love working with great people. So whoever great coming to us, we will start working with them, having a trial, and figure out a way to include them in our company many times. I also work with over 10 different college interns. Our entire marketing is done by fabulous interns currently in college or graduated. I'm a big believer in paying intern and don't give them work that can be done by hiring someone from Upwork. So I think that also is part of our social responsibility as a company to really help young people learn and young people explore what they love in the workforce, which is one thing I personally struggled a lot during college.
Yes, stop unpaid internships.
I would just add, because your question was also concerned about what would be the future of recruiting. And yes, I do think you shouldn't hire anybody that doesn't follow along the values of the company and skills are I usually say that you get hired, by hard skills and get fired by soft skills usually. But I would say that in the future, even though I understand the importance of loyalty that you were mentioning, I actually think it's going to be so much more maybe temporary jobs. And I think also agencies will have an important role in ensuring that they represent the person and that actually they know what their values are. And then when they get to know the company and the values, they can put them in touch. And maybe a fashion designer can actually be working for multiple companies at the same time, or work for just 3 months and then shift, or like teams actually working in a multidisciplinary way, but in a much more dynamic, where actually I might be in 3 or 4 companies during that year, but I'm represented by an agency that actually takes that burden that we usually can have if we're looking for a job. So I think that flexibility, it's already here, and the people might need, and the brands as well, help with doing the right matching, the same way that like dating apps so many times fail doing, right?
Awesome. Okay, we have time for one more question. I saw you in the front earlier, so go ahead.
So you had mentioned how like the future of fashion is going to become like more accessible, right? In terms of like having design technology being available to more people and having like the barriers to entry being lower. I'm curious how each of you expect that to impact like marginalized communities and how they're able to participate in an industry that normally hasn't been very inclusive of them. And what do you, as champions of this industry, how do you intend to like support that kind of
Yeah, so to repeat that question, the future of fashion, the barrier to entry into the industry is going down, which creates a lot more opportunity. And the question for our founders here is, how do you see this fact impacting marginalized communities and allowing those communities to become involved in the industry? Is that right?
I would like to start answering that question because I feel, my background has nothing to do with fashion. So I've never worked in the industry until I decided to create my own brand. And I might not come from the most marginalized community, but I did come from a place of no knowledge, no network, no nothing. And I can actually make also a comparison between Portugal and US. And here you have the culture of networking so much more developed. And the reason why you're here today is like because there's a site called Meetup or Eventbrite, right? That just made this event very accessible. And I had also the experience a few months ago when I was here in New York. And you can go into different associations, subscribe into events. And if you build the ability of have empathy to people, believe me, there's no way you can hold yourself and guard yourself into the excuse of being marginalized, because the reality is people will, there's many ways you can connect. And of course, in the end, I gotta be honest, it's a very competitive industry. So I also felt many ways that many times, if I didn't have a really cutting edge product, they wouldn't give me the opportunity of having a meeting with them. But I think we have to respect that because they have hundreds of brands knocking on their doors. In so many ways, it was like, okay, I don't think you're at the right stage, but your product is amazing. Let me speak to you, And sometimes you actually end up meeting people, not having, which I think it's important to say, what you think life should be giving you. But there might be an opportunity right there that you're missing out. And a lot of times I even had this meeting, I remember once with an investor, and their answer was, we want to invest in you, I'm not so sure in your company. And I was like, this can be, it felt better than it could be worse, because I was still meeting them. They gave me the opportunity to present my company. So yeah, empathy, again, keep showing up and things will happen.
I think at Lensing, we're a $2 billion company. We have 8,000 employees around the world. So we look at supporting various groups in different ways. So some are in collaboration. It might even be working with, Red Cross on different programs that we have, or it might even be some other social programs we have. In Albania, we work on a conservation program where it's also a work program. So there's work training involved there. But I think, any company now knows that they have to give back to on the social side. And that's really important. We also have a carbon credit program that goes back to social programs. So I think, we all approach it from different ways. and being a larger organization, we look at what we can do locally and then how we can still impact globally.
I think for our company, we're very, very happy to say we're actually 100% minority founded and minority operated. So that's something that there's so many, like, I'm not a champion in my industry. I'm still hustling, okay? After 2.5 years of hustling from coffee shop and work from homes and work remote, we finally have our office in Lower East Side, but seriously, it took nothing less than 2.5 months, if not more. So for us, is that exactly what you said? It's opportunity is around the door if you hustle and if you follow through. There are a lot of brands like us. There are a lot of brands that focuses on changing the industry by the way that it's meant to be, right? How the fashion is meant to be for us, people like us. So, reach out to those brands, go knock on their doors, go say hi to their employees, and you just never know where the next opportunity comes in. Most of our employees actually came in and say, hey, I love your brands. Like, are you guys hiring? We're like, yes, we are. Like, that's simply that opportunity happens. We don't look through LinkedIn. We don't, for us is that if you like us, then you will already be a part of us, and we hire within our community. That's actually all our hires come from. We post our social media, or we get applicants, and etc. So I'm very proud to say that we're 100% minority founded and minority operated. Yeah.
Turned it off. Okay, it's on. So yeah, very much aligned with that. Our company also is founded by me and my co-founder. Both of us are first generation. We're both Chinese immigrants. We're both women. We were able to raise our pre-seed round last year in a venture world where 2% of the money goes to women. And with our accent today, we were practicing our seed round pitch with our investor, and she was lecturing us on how many times we have to practice to be able to speak like a white male, essentially. So it is difficult and it's challenging. And in our pre-seed round, actually, we had two institutional VCs, both of which the first conversation we had are with the women in their fund. So we definitely feel like by becoming the leader in the industry yourself as a marginalized founder, you will have much bigger power to change the industry, change the narrative, and people see you, people will be inspired by you, they will grow up believing in a future where they can become someone like you. It's just like me. I grew up with my mom being the breadwinner of my family, the entrepreneur of my family. She started living in another city since I was 4, really working extremely hard so that I have the opportunity to study abroad. And I grew up never having 1 second doubting women can become a founder, because that's how my family works. And I think rather than doubting yourself and thinking about what being marginalized minority will impact the opportunity, I think we should go out and we should stand up and becoming the change that you want to see.
Awesome. Well, a lot of the advice I heard in that last round evolved around showing up, and all of you showed up today. I hope all of you leave having met someone new. Don't leave yet, though. We have another panel coming. But thank you for showing up. Thank you all for showing up for our panel today. We're so excited to have you all. We have one more panel coming your way. This next one is going to be focused on sustainability, so we'll take a short break while we get everyone resituated here. And yeah, thank you so much, panelists, for joining us.